Hello, welcome back to the channel, and this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, unboxings. We generally like to talk a lot of bollocks about tabletop gaming in general, and in this video we're going to be talking about a miniatures skirmish game. We're going to be talking about Star Wars X-Wing First Edition, not Second Edition, right? So don't get your knickers in a twist over this one. And in this game, you will be flying your Star Wars-based ships around a 3x3 game area. You'll be trying to blow up your opponents in the hope that you can win the game. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you a very brief overview of the rules to tell you what we do like, we don't like. And we'll come back and we'll tell you whether or not Star Wars X-Wing First Edition is still worth your time and bother in 2023. So remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel. I don't really care if you don't, but make sure you do. Hit the like button and all that YouTube bullshit. We'll see you after this. Bollocks! So, Star Wars X-Wing First Edition. How'd you play this game? So, Star Wars X-Wing First Edition is essentially a two-player miniatures skirmish game. You can play it with more players, but it says 2 players on the box. Each player is going to create a squadron, right? You see that each ship has a load of pilot cards. We choose a pilot card, and generally each pilot has a squadron value at the bottom. The rules say that you should get a squadron that has 100 points total, and you'll choose a pilot, and then you can assign upgrade cards to these pilots, right? You'll choose enough pilots and enough ships and enough upgrades to come to 100 points, and the other player will do the same, right? Obviously, you're not going to have the Rebel Alliance fighting against the Rebel Alliance. You're going to have the Rebels fighting the Galactic Empire or the First Order and Scum and Villainy and all that sort of shit, right? So you'll take the ship, you'll stick it on a base, you'll take the maneuver dial, you'll take all your cards and some tokens and all that sort of stuff, and then you'll start playing. The game takes place over a number of phases. First phase is the planning phase. What you do, you take your little maneuver dial and you'll choose a maneuver to make. You'll secretly do that, you put it face down. So the next phase is the activation phase. In order of lowest pilot skill to highest pilot skill, you will execute your maneuver, reveal your dials, and you will take the movement template that is associated with the maneuver that you chose in the planning phase, and you'll execute the maneuver. You'll stick the template at the end on the little recessed bit of your ship, and you'll move the ship to the end of the template. If you chose a red maneuver, your pilot becomes stressed, and this means you cannot take another white or red maneuver until you've taken a green maneuver. You put a stress token on your ship's base to reflect that. Once you have moved your ship, you'll be able to perform one action. You'll see that there's a little bar on your pilot's card that tells you what type of actions you can perform, and you might even have actions on your upgrade cards that you can perform as well. So you might want to take the focus action, in which case you'll put a focus token on your ship. This will allow you to turn all of your focus tokens into hits or evades in the combat phase. You can take an evade token. This allows you to evade a hit in the combat phase. You might be able to perform a barrel roll, in which case you'll take the number 1 straight maneuver template, you place it to either side of your ship, and you'll be able to move sideways either left or right. Or you might be able to acquire a target lock, in which case you'll take the red and blue target lock, replace the blue one on your ship, place a red one on an opponent's ship that is in range, and this will have ramifications during the combat phase. So once everybody has activated all their shit, then you'll move on to the combat phase. This is where you will be trying to blow up your opponents, right? First thing you will do, you will declare a target. You'll see there is a target in arc on every ship. You will take the range ruler and you'll see if they are within range, yeah? If they are within range 1, you'll take an extra die when you roll your attack dice, and if they are in range 3, then the defender will get an extra defense die. So you will roll your attack dice. You'll see that you've got hits and critical hits. The defender will then roll their die, and then dependent on how many evade tokens they've got on a ship, that will negate that number of hits. And then you will deal damage. Each ship has got a number of shields. Once you have depleted your shields, then you'll take damage cards, and every critical hit, once your shields are gone, will deal a damage card face up, and this will have a negative effect on your pilot and your ship. So then you'll do a little bit of cleanup in the end phase, right? And you'll keep doing this until you have destroyed your opponent, or your opponent has destroyed you, and then whoever does that will be the winner of Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures Game First Edition. So what do we like about Star Wars X-Wing? So the first thing that we really like about this game is that there are loads and loads of ships to choose from, right? I think there's 4 different types of factions. I think you've got the Rebels, you've got the Galactic Empire, the Scum and Villainy, and the First Order. I'm sure Star Wars X-Wing geeks are going to be screaming out saying there's Rebel Resistance, and then there's something else. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, there's loads and loads of ships to choose from, right? You've even got the absolutely huge, enormous ships. Like, I don't know, I don't think it goes as big as the Death Star, right? But you've got the rebel troop carrier, and is it the Tantric something or other? I think Sting's on board that one. But yeah, you've even got the big ships in there, and they come pre-painted, don't they? So the manufacturers went to the trouble of getting sweatshop employees to hand paint these miniatures so that you entitled bastards can have something nice to look at. So the second thing we like about this game is that each ship has its own abilities and its own movements. If you think about the Millennium Falcon, for instance, it can target anybody in a 360-degree circumference. I think that's the right word. Or maybe the Slave 1 ship, you can target from the front or you can target from the rear. Each ship has its own unique maneuver dial, right? So if you've got a big clunky ship, it's not going to be able to make sharp turns in the same way that the A-Wing or the X-Wing is going to be able to do. So I really like the fact that there is so much variety in how many waves are there? Is there 10 or 12 or something? 12 waves of miniatures for this. Love it. So the final thing that we like about this game is there's loads of mitigation for the random die rolls. It's not just a case of, yeah, look, I've done some damage to your ship, you've done some damage to my ship, blah, 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 blah. There's loads of different tokens. You've got target locks, which I didn't explain, actually. I should explain that now before you start moaning at me. So target locks allow you to re-roll any number of dice that you like. Glad we got that cleared up before you took a rusty blade to my testicles. So yeah, there's loads of different card effects, loads of different upgrades you could choose, loads and loads of different tokens that can mitigate the effects of the random die roll, and that's what we want. We don't like random die rolls in games if we could help it. And really, if you are in the Millennium Falcon and you've got Han Solo and Chewbacca stuffed in there with you, and you get your ass blown up by a lowly lost TIE fighter, then that shit's on you, right? Nobody else is going to be carrying the can for that fuck up. Don't we like that Star Wars X-Wing First Edition? So the first thing that we don't like about this, and I'm still in pain over what happened with this game years ago, we got a moderate amount of ships here. You know, we picked up a few of the larger ships. We got a lot of the mini ships. And then Fantasy Flight turned around and said that we're not going to support it anymore. We're going to make Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game second edition, right? And nothing was compatible. You had to buy either new ships or you had to pick up these really expensive conversion kits that were like about 40 or 50 quid. And I said, fuck that. I ain't getting involved in none of that shit. I got this rule where I don't buy games that I already own unless I can justify it myself. I know I've adapted that rule over time because I've done it on a couple of occasions, right? But I just couldn't justify the cost for that. I wasn't willing to flog all my existing ships and that I've built up over a number of years. I wasn't willing to reinvest all that cash into a new product that just seemed like a bit of a cash grab, yeah? So we stuck with the first edition. And so this game is now effectively dead with the stuff that we got. You know, you can still pick up bits and pieces here and there on the cheap on eBay and all that sort of thing. But just soured the whole experience that Fantasy Flight yet again decide to kick their customers in the bollocks in favour of their fucking shareholders and profit. So the second thing that we don't like about this game is that it can be a little bit fiddly carrying all them tokens around on the board. You know, the focus tokens, you've got the target lock tokens, and when you're measuring the ship, it's very difficult to get a precise idea of what range you're in. If the range marker goes on top of the ship, you've got this weird rule where if the two bases overlap, then you have to be touching each other. Not in that way, for fuck's sake. And that means you can't target somebody close, and if you're underneath the ship, then you have to fuck about, put it on an extra peg or something like that. So it can be quite fiddly. There's sometimes you get arguments about how many millimeters you might have moved it extra by knocking the ship slightly when you move it on the template and all this sort of stuff. And it can be a little bit frustrating. And in the end, you just go, well, fuck it, just leave it at that then. So the final thing that we don't like about this game is that there's no official rules for one-on-one combat, right? There are some fan-made rules called the Aces rules or something, but they're a little bit wonky, yeah? You only play for 55 minutes, and every time we've played that, nobody ever gets blown up because it's very difficult to do 6 damage on the Millennium Falcon and then inflict enough damage to blow it up in 55 minutes. And I think the rules do state after like 45 minutes, nobody can respawn, right? So it's just a shame that it's limited to 2 factions. There's no sort of mosh pit, Royal Rumble style thing going on with this game. And I think that's how we would like to play it, right? You know, so many points for a win, so many points for an assist. And like we said, the fan-made rules for one-on-one combat are a little bit wonky, right? And I'm not in the business of writing rules for a game myself, so we're never going to see it because the game is dead, right? And that's that. So to summarise, is Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game, first edition, still worth your time and bother? Several years after it was first released, several years after it was killed off by a bunch of money-grabbing bastards. So we are going to say yes and no. If you've already got a load of content for this, then yeah, just keep hold of it because you've probably got enough of this shit to keep you happy for the rest of your life, right? But if you don't have this game, then really don't bother picking up the first edition. Go with the second edition because they're still making content for it, and it'd just be dumb jumping into a dead game when it's sort of dead, right? But if you could pick up some cheap first edition stuff, enough of it to get going, you can always get cheap stuff on eBay, or do what we do and pick up the foreign language packs off of Amazon on the cheap, and then just basically go onto a squad building page, sleeve the cards, put paste ups on top of them, right? So you pick up a lot of ships on the cheap doing it that way. But regardless of that, this is an excellent lightweight entry level miniatures skirmish game that we enjoy quite a bit. It offers a wealth of ships and therefore a wealth of replay ability. Loads of different combinations of ships and upgrades as well. But it's still a dead game, isn't it? It's been killed off by the bastard 2.0 edition. And I don't know, every time I look at this game, I just see a big steaming turd with flies buzzing around it. Can be a bit of a ball ache, shifting all them tokens around and checking for range, and when you move your ship you might move it a couple of millimeters more or less than you were supposed to. Like we said, this remains a top bollock entry level miniatures skirmish game. If you fall into one of the criteria that we mentioned at the beginning of the summary, then Star Wars X-Wing First Edition is probably a game for you. So there you go, that's Star Wars X-Wing First Edition. Remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel, hit the like button and all that YouTube bullshit. See you next Tuesday.